Catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.
The 27th United Nations Climate Change Conference offered reasons to be optimistic about the future of climate tech in Africa. But then let's consider a few numbers which are not secret. They are all out in the open. In 2021, climate tech startups in Africa raised a mere $440 million in disclosed funding compared to $2.4 billion for fintech on the continent. African tech startups that are focused on climate change received just about 0.2% of venture funding, compared with 94% for the likes of the United States, Canada, China, Europe. Though the COP27 Climate Tech Run competition recognized African climate tech, African green startups would need more than just a competition. The technical coordinator, World Meteorological Organization, Africa Office, Abubakr Salih Babiker, in this episode, we'll be discussing what's next for climate tech in Africa after the much-touted African COP, the COP27. Welcome, Abubakar. How are you doing today? I can see you're smiling. You're actually smiling.
Hello. Thank you very much, Anthony. And thank you very much, Africa Tech Radio, for having me. My name is Abubakr Salih Babiker. I am from WMO Regional Office for Africa. I'm good. I'm talking to you from Addis Ababa.
Beautiful. Where the regional office is located, yeah?
Yes, exactly.
So before the last time we spoke, I think it was like 2021, you were with ICPAC. How has the move been, and how much have you actually settled in a new role and the new office?
Yes, it's kind of a smooth move. I worked for ICPAC, which is the regional climate for East Africa, for 4 years. And then as a normal move in career, I moved to a job, a bigger role with the World Meteorological Organization, with the regional office for Africa, based in Addis Ababa. I work as a technical coordinator for meteorological infrastructure. And it encompasses all the aspect of the infrastructure, the weather stations, the data that comes from satellite, the data that comes from models, different aspects of these infrastructure that we use to provide weather and climate services. So I'm overseeing of a continental role.
Interesting. So when we look at the issues around climate on the continent, what's the state of climate change in Africa? How damaging have the effects been? I think it's a good way to start because we understand the situation on ground now. The kind of things we faced this year before we now get into the tech that can be used to solve it. The trends we've noticed this year too, and all of that. So let's start this way.
Great. It's a good start. Let us start from the status of climate change in Africa. So there is a report was just released this year before the COP, which is the IPCC report, the assessment report number 6, which summarizes all the scientific literature about and most of the finding about climate change and how different continents and different countries have been warming and have been affected by climate change. So some of the major finding of the assessment report number 6 is that Africa is warming very fast. Actually, the warming in Africa is faster than the global average. So if we are talking now about global average increase in temperature about 1.1 since pre-industrial time, the warming over Africa is higher than that. More than the global average, which is about 1.1 to 1.2 currently. And Africa is also, the extreme events are increasing rapidly. They're increasing in intensity and frequency. That is for the continent of Africa. Sea level rise around Africa is also higher than the global average. And most of the cities in Africa actually have warmed beyond almost around 2 degrees Celsius. So if we are talking about global warming, about 1.1 in general in the globe, the cities, the urban centers of Africa, some of them are already at 2 degrees Celsius, more than the pre-industrial time, and some of them even increase more than 2 degrees Celsius. There are glaciers in Africa, in the Kenya, in the mountains in Kenya, in Mountain Kilimanjaro. Those are actually rapidly vanishing, and they are affecting the whole ecosystem around them. So this is in terms of signals of climate change that we have seen in Africa. In terms of damage, in the past 50 years, for example, from 1970 to 2019, there was a report by WMO and other partners about the impact of disasters globally and regionally also. For example, taking cases from Africa, in this 50 years period, Africa experienced 35% of the global disasters related to weather, climate, and water. And they have led to deaths of more than 700,000 people lost their life, and about 38.1 billion in economic damages. These are due to floods, due to droughts, due to landslides, and different range of extremes. So this is just a general picture of where we are now in terms of signal of climate change, from the warming and the heat waves and the extreme event and their impact on life and livelihood in Africa. So this is where we are so far.
Wow. Most times when people notice floods in their environment, when the heat waves are like really, really hot, when we have these issues, most times you don't think it's, connected to climate change. You just feel, it's just one of those things, or maybe the hand of God or something else. But these things have a connection back to, climate change and all the discussions that people have been having about preventing these damages and this effect from really hurting people. So now, away from that, how much technology is being utilized in fighting climate change effects in Africa? I'm asking this because I know that there is work going on, but not a lot is being said about the amount of work that is going on underground. Just like when EPAC, launched the hazard system in 2021 or 2020, and other kind of work like that's ongoing. So, how much technology is being used currently in fighting climate change in Africa?
Great. There is currently a level of usage of technology. For example, using the use of satellite and geospatial data to monitor the climate and weather systems. There is use of high-performance computers to produce forecasts. This is also gradually increasing in Africa. So more countries now, they have computers with a bigger capacity that can run a weather forecast model, so we can use it to predict. That coupled also with satellite. There is also increase in automatic weather stations. More countries now in Africa are moving from the old way of taking observation from the weather observation instead of manual labor and someone go and read thermometers and different measurement tools. Now we have automatic weather stations that are collecting data. Besides that, we also have seen increase in using information technology and digital marketing, for example, to deliver services, deliver information, deliver early warning to the population. So more and more of the national meteorological services now, many of them now are using social media, for example, the technology that the social media offer to disseminate and reach people with early warning, with weather and climate information. So there is a use of technology in that sense, but there is still some gaps that still remain. Technology has still a lot to offer in terms of we increase our utilization of technology. For example, automatic weather stations, we can increase the way we benefit from this technology. In a way, data can be shared. Data now most of the data, yes, is collected, but it goes into servers and it's not much ingested in the day-to-day operational forecast. And that's kind of a gap that we need to close. We also need to benefit more from the social media technology to reach larger population, or at least to understand even the users, who they are, where do they live, whether they live in urban settings, whether they live in rural areas. There room for this, room for improvement in this area. There's room also for radio like this, especially people in rural area. They rely on radios because they don't have stable internet connections and easy access to internet and the device that through which they can access internet. So we use them we to reach them with the information and advisories. Maybe we can benefit from radios and partnership with the traditional leaders, with the traditional institutions like church, mosque, tribal gathering, and so on and so forth. So with the technology, we also still need radio and other traditional methods to reach a wider population with the information.
So the awareness and the technologies that would help in addressing, the issues face to face. But then the awareness is also very important because, the awareness, the lack of information for people to act on. These are 2 points or the two major pillars of, what I picked up from you. Now, the trends that we would say we observed in the climate tech space in Africa in 2022, I'm guessing COP27 would be maybe, or the agreements or the discussions on COP27 would be most likely one of them, and maybe the number of startups who are coming up to take up or provide solutions. But let me leave it to you. What trends did you notice in the climate tech space in Africa in 2022?
Yes, a number of actually tech companies and startups, as you said, they have come forward and they provided or they try to offer solutions. Mobile technology, for example, is a major area. Many startups, they are offering solutions using mobile app to tackle different type of problems. For example, delivering weather and climate services, or delivering decision to help people. For example, farmers, by combining weather and climate information together with the market information. So farmers or small scale farmers could also benefit from the mix of weather and climate information, and also the understanding the market and what is happening on it. There is also major development in the area of renewable energy, because renewable energy now, it is getting cheaper and cheaper. For example, solar, the prices from solars are going down constantly, and that offer a huge market and opportunities for tech companies, so they can start using or engaging into renewable energy production and technology, and that could offer a big solution for climate mitigation. So it can help Africa to leapfrog from carbon emitting sources of energy to more of greener energies. Those are the things that came to my mind. But you can also share from your side. What did you notice?
Well, so I think there are a lot more efforts, intentional efforts. This is, what I noticed in using social media and new media tools to spread the information about climate change and also climate action, not just climate change, because the COP27, we had a lot of young people. I don't know if that was intentional, but we had a lot of young people who attended the COP27, and most of them used their social media handles, to talk about these things, and a lot of people who didn't even, think about something as the COP27 or climate, kind of like keyed into that the trend at the time, which was COP27, and everyone being in Egypt, and all of that. I think that was like a really strong trend, something I think I noticed in this year 2022. And my follow-up would be, do you think that the discussions and the agreements at COP27 kind of maybe addressed, certain climate change challenges facing, Africa?
Great. Yes, there is definitely increase in awareness. There are more young people, and they realize that this is actually, or the old generation is leaving them with a big trouble because they are the future, and they want a more comfortable and bright future, and they see that this game, the way it is going now, is not going in their interest. That is why they became worried and they became engaged, and this is a positive sign. I am really happy that they took responsibility, they became aware, and they want to do something, or they want to advocate that the current generation who's leading should take action so they can leave behind a safer planet, which is understandable and fair enough. That is on, and the use of the social media was also great on that sense. On the outcome of the COP itself and the agreement, it's kind of it came out like a mix. So one of, for example, major outcomes of this COP is a decision to set up a new fund for loss and damage resulting from climate change. This is like, to many observers, this is like a climax of the decade-long effort by small island state and vulnerable nations. They've been calling for this loss and damage fund, so that the impact of climate change and the damages that caused due to climate change to small island and to developing nations, those nations who are vulnerable, should be compensated for that. So that's kind of the decision, the positive decision on that. A fund will be set up on this. Loss and damage will be covered. That was a very bright point from it. But the issue is that the other, like a bittersweet of it, is that in the what is known as Sharm el-Sheikh implementation plan, it kind of excluded any mention, like a clear or explicit mention, for winding down the use of fossil fuels. So there is no like clear decision or clear call for let us reduce in an organized way the usage of fossil fuel, because this is the parties were competing. There are different parties, and they are some of the fossil fuel industry or some fossil fuel dependent countries and stakeholders. They wanted it to be open like that, and that kind of a bit of setback. Although there is a positive result, but this is another setback. The other challenges are also related to the discrepancies between what is expected from Paris Agreement. Within Paris Agreement, the world said that we will keep the temperature between 1.5 to maximum. But now the challenges are in implementation. The current pledge, the current policies that are the practical things that are happening are a bit far removed from reaching that target of 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius warming by the end of this century, to keep the warming below that. And we are not heading in the right direction, and we have really very short time to reach the reasonable targets. And if we are now just at a warming of 1.2 degrees Celsius, and we have seen all those kind of extremes and very damaging extreme event like a tropical cyclone Idai, tropical cyclone Kenneth, the strongest tropical cyclones in record to hit Mozambique. Somalia, for example, a very vulnerable country, was also impacted by one of the strongest tropical cyclones recently, tropical cyclone Sagar. We have seen tropical cyclones that impacted the Arabian Peninsula, and they resulted in desert locusts because they brought water and moisture in a desert region. So this is just about 1.1 to 1.2 degrees Celsius. So imagine if we are going into a climate that is warmer, maybe 4 or 3 degrees Celsius. How life would be in this planet? It would be very challenging, and this is again will bring us to the issue of new generation, to the youth who are the future and the inheritance of the planet. Yeah.
Now, one of the challenges, as you've mentioned, is implementation of the Paris Agreement. What other challenges do you foresee, or what other challenges do you think the climate technology innovation or the climate technology space generally in Africa faces, or may face in the coming years?
Yeah, this is a good question actually. For Africa, some of the major challenges we are facing is technology transfer. Number of them, but let's start with technology transfer, because many of the technological development, the advances in technology, they happen in the developed world, and it takes a bit of time, it takes a bit of resources to get the newest technology to be transferred to Africa, and this is one of the major challenges. We need to accelerate the issue of technology transfer to Africa, because the time is limited. If we wait for it to come in the same old fashion or old pace, we will really lose very valuable time. Look at for example, the case of COVID and the vaccines. It's a technology also. But somehow it was restricted, and somehow only the wealthy communities and the wealthy countries are the one who benefited from it. Until now, the vaccination rate in Africa very, very low against COVID. So these kind of things need to be accelerated because we're dealing with an emergency. We are talking now not about climate change, but about climate emergency. Climate change is really, really something urgent, and we need to act on it. So technology transfer need to be accelerated and sped up. We also need to have finance, so the technology can be upscaled in Africa, so to cover different aspect of the socio-economic life. So if we have a technology, for example, on renewable energy, we need it to come as fast as possible. We need it to come in a reasonable price, so it can be adopted, and it can also push the economies into a greener path. If there is a technology related to, for example, computing resources or satellite information, we need it also to come as fast as possible, so it can help with adaptation and to help with the aspect of adaptation, having good weather and climate services to help communities adjust to the challenges that are emerging from climate change. The third element, besides technology transfer and finance that could accelerate the process, we need capacity building. We need to build the capacity of the population and the youth in Africa, so they can have the skill and the capacity to adopt the technology, to maintain this technology, and to build on it. So we can progress forward in that aspect in using technology to fight climate change, for mitigation and for adaptation.
These are very, yes. So you wanted to say something? You could go ahead.
No, this is just a summary related to technology and challenges with it and how it can be related to climate change.
Okay. So these are very important points that you've mentioned. The technology transfer, which should go side by side with capacity building, right? Because when that if the process becomes seamless, the process of technology transfer, we need the capacity to maintain, like you have said, and to build on the technology, so that we don't keep going back to the West for such, but we can actually build on ours. And if we have traditional means of getting, we can also develop like our traditional knowledge, right, and ensure that we upgrade it to the level at which technology generally runs now. And then finance. So one of the major summaries of agreement was putting finance to early warning systems. I think that's one of the things that I noted from the COP deliberations and agreement. It should be something that should receive a lot of finance. And the Africa Union, just at the COP27, launched the Transition Fields Oversight Regulatory Management Accelerator. It's like a combined business governance digital platform to connect African energy regulators, industry actors, consumers around the common interface just to advance clean energy. And there was also another funding that was announced for early warning systems to be developed within, I think from now to 2025 or 2030 across the continent. So everyone in the world, in fact, has like an early warning system that can actually attend to them. How do you think African climate tech startups and African countries can attract the much needed climate tech funding?
Great. This is very interesting. Yes, actually, the early warning initiative is actually led by WMO, which came out of a call from the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. In the last March, the World Meteorological Day, he asked WMO to lead the effort of coming up with the initiative to cover everyone in the planet by early warning system in the next 5 years. So by 2027, maybe everyone should be covered by early warning system. So that is, and the initiative received a lot of support, a lot of backing, a lot of partnership. They engage with it. African Union already on board. Number of economic communities. So, for example, like ECOWAS in West Africa, like SADC in Southern Africa, IGAD in East Africa, IGAD and ESC. So all those are adopting the same approach of the early warning system. We also, from our side, I would like also to take this opportunity to disclose that we are actually, last time you interviewed me about the East Africa Hazard Watch, and now I work with the same team. They came with me this side on WMO, and we are upscaling that system to cover all Africa. So we have very talented staff with us. We have 2 programmers and another expert on innovation and climate services. So they're working with me here, and we are upscaling the system to cover all Africa. It will be available to the National Meteorological Services. They will be able to access it. It will provide visualization, for example, for data from surface stations, from upper air stations, and from satellite. It will provide also visualization for forecast. So it will be a very, very efficient tool for the user, for the expert, to generate really good weather and climate services, and then take it further to disseminate it to the population. So in this way, we can help with early warning system. So in case of severe weather event and extreme event, people will be informed early enough. And also it will also visualize socioeconomic data. So we will not only just tell what the weather will be, but the user will be able to tell what the impact might happen from this extreme event. So, for example, population, you can see the severe event and how many people live under that area. So you can be able to advise and say there is a severe event and it is expected to affect 100,000 of people. Location of key infrastructure. We also have the location of key infrastructure, airport, hospitals, power plants, and so on. So the forecaster also will tell what the weather will be and what it might do. Maybe it will close the airport, or there's a hospital that might be affected, or whatever the key infrastructure in the area. So this is our contribution to the UN Secretary General initiative covering everyone by early warning system in the next 5 years. We're really, really excited about it. And when we progress in the development, we can come back again in the show. If your time permit, we'd be happy to talk to you again and maybe to your audience as well.
I'm really happy to hear this. And it's really good that, this innovation is being scaled for the whole of Africa. But I would also want you to, touch on, how you think, based on, your own suggestions, we can attract financing into, the climate change space in Africa.
There are a number of initiatives actually going on. For example, the tech companies, they offer, I remember Google was having an initiative recently through which that it offer options for finance. So for example, if you have an idea or some of your audience have an idea about technological solution that could help with climate mitigation or climate adaptation, they can apply on that, on those kind of, to attract those call for proposals and look for resources from them. Google and a number of other entities, they are working on this. Media has a major role. If you have a media project that could really help with creating awareness or delivering early warning information or reaching people, vulnerable communities in rural areas, that in itself is a really valid project through which you can apply to those resource fundings that are available. You can also approach the banks, the developmental banks, the African Development Bank, the World Bank. Many donors actually and many developmental agencies have those call for proposals from time to time. Just always need a solid, very concrete idea on how your project or your idea can contribute to climate change mitigation or climate change adaptation, or even early warning and livelihood and things like that. But I believe the media has opportunities to seek those resources, and it's we need media actually. Without media, we if you have a good idea and you are not communicating it, is not there. You have nothing.
Okay. So that said, thank you very much. Final words on what is next for climate tech? How much opportunities are there? How big can the space get here on the continent? Final words towards that end.
Yes, I'm very optimistic. I believe that there are really huge opportunities for the tech companies and the startup and new initiatives in the continent. As I said, especially in areas related to renewable energy, solar, wind, and those are areas that could benefit a lot the communities, and they could find the resources that could help with them. Then there is areas related to computing and IT generally. We really need to use the facilities that are available from the IT. That, for example, I gave example of 2 programmers working with us to develop Africa Hazard Watch. So it's a major the use of technology. I would encourage more and more of the use to go into the area of technology, learn programming, improve their programming skills, because through this we can amplify these tools which we call computer. Without programming, little can be done. But the tool is more effective when we have we're using it for to achieve something. Last area is the area of the social media. It can be used in a very efficient and a very effective way to deliver information, reliable information, because now we have a range of information that or misinformation actually. So being a robust, concise source of information, that would be very helpful. Understanding also the users, who are they, where they are, they're using the analytic tools that are offered by the social media to understand the users and how geographically distributed, how geographically are we covering, are we reaching the people with the information. That could be also a major area that we need to work on. So those are my final thoughts on this.
Okay, that's cool. That's fine. So just like we did the last time, I would switch things up a bit and just some random thoughts and random questions. Yeah. This year, 2022, what has been the most memorable moment for you for the year, throughout the year 2022?
The call from the United Nations Secretary General. He is very vocal about climate change, and he's very strong advocate for tackling climate change and considering it an emergency. But his call, when he called for covering everyone by early warning system in 5 years, it's really a big and ambitious call. And the reason for it is that we in Africa almost have 60%, in the best estimate, 60% of our population are not covered by any early warning system. That makes them very vulnerable to weather and climate extremes. Also, we have high dependency in the communities on natural resources, which is also sensitive to weather and climate extremes. Most of the development happening in the African economies happened in also sectors that are vulnerable to weather and climate. For example, agriculture, livestock, other ecosystem services. So those sectors are very, very vulnerable to weather and climate extreme. Like we have seen in Somalia, for example, people have been affected badly by a very rapid period of floods in 2019 and suddenly a rapid or longer period of drought. Since 2020 until today, Somalia is under drought. Before that, it was under flood. So they became like a really little time for communities to recover from disasters. Even government, to help people, they became juggling from one disaster to another. So those kind of challenges need to be tackled, and the call for early warning system and improving weather and climate services to support resilience is a highlight of my year.
Okay, and then what would your wishes for as we end the year, right? What would your wishes be as we end the year? And what would your wishes be for the new year? This can be personal, it's, just you, what your wishes are for as we end the year and as we begin a new year, 2023.
Yes, for the end of this year, I'm hoping we are working on this system, as I said, and we are hoping to have it already online, hosted online, and that maybe we can have a link and send it to someone and say, hey, we're working on this pilot project, could you please test it and see what do you think, and give us your feedback. I'm really hoping that we manage to do this by the end of this year, and from here until the end of the year. And by next year, we are hoping the system will go into a pilot mode, and it will be formally endorsed and adopted by the WMO Association for Africa. This is the Association of the National Meteorological Services in Africa. So I'm hoping that by February next year, there could be formal adoption of the system, and then we can come and talk about it to the media and tell how fantastic it is and how it can help with saving lives and livelihood.
Okay, that's beautiful. So nothing personal, no personal, do you have personal thoughts as we end the year, or, anyone for the new year?
Now, on personal level, I really just wish the best for my family and for my friend, and to you, to Anthony. I wish you all the best toward the end of this year. I hope you have managed to achieve all your goals for the year, and I wish you a next year that is also full with happiness and achievement as we go forward.
Okay, thank you very much for the wonderful wishes, and I hope that you also achieve everything that you've planned to achieve this year, and that we break more boundaries next year and achieve greater heights in the coming years here.
Great. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. So climate tech is a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity that will attract more private capital and create more high-value companies while transforming everything from cooking to transport, but only if it is done well and with a focus on the right places at the right time, which is now. Some companies are already tapping into the opportunity using financial technology, e-commerce, digital payment solutions to provide easier access to renewable energy, to close the gap for the 600 million people without modern electricity access. But then urgent action is needed to ensure that these pockets of successes which we are celebrating across the continent are scaled up, and much more needs to be done in the area of awareness and information dissemination through social and new media, just like our guest Abubakr Salih Babiker has made us know today. COP27 provided reasons to be optimistic about the future of climate tech in Africa, but having no clear follow-ups after COP27 will only jeopardize the tiniest sliver of optimism remaining. From investors to development professionals, all hands must be on deck, even citizens, to fast-track Africa's progress.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.